On the morning of June 30th, 1908, the sky over Siberia tore open. A column of blue-white fire, by some accounts brighter than the sun, ripped across the taiga, and then the world detonated. In an instant, around 2,000 square kilometers of ancient forest were flattened. An estimated 80 million trees knocked down like matchsticks, all pointing away from a single empty point on the map. There was no army, no enemy bomb, no war. And here is the part that still unsettles scientists more than a century later. When people finally reached the center of the blast, they found no crater. Nothing had landed, something had simply exploded in the air over one of the loneliest places on Earth. And we are still arguing about exactly what it was. The region is the Podkamennaya Tunguska, deep in central Siberia, a place of swamp, pine and silence, where the nearest people were scattered Evenki reindeer herders and a handful of Russian traders. At around 7 in the morning, witnesses up to hundreds of kilometers away saw a fireball cross the sky and a pillar of light climb above the horizon. Then came the shockwave. At a trading post called Vanavara, roughly 60 kilometers from the center, a man named Semyon Semyonov later told investigators he was thrown from where he sat and felt a heat so fierce he thought his shirt was burning. 60 kilometers away. Windows shattered in villages far beyond that. The sound rolled out for hundreds of kilometers, like artillery, like the sky itself collapsing. I should be honest here. Those eyewitness accounts were written down years afterward, so the exact words rest on memory, and the records sometimes disagree on the details. And then, something stranger. For several nights afterward, the skies across Europe and Asia refused to go dark. In London, in Sweden, people reported being able to read a newspaper outdoors at midnight. Photographs were taken in the small hours with no lamp at all. Scientists at the time had no idea why. We now think a vast cloud of dust and ice had been thrown into the upper atmosphere, scattering sunlight around the curve of the planet. The whole world, in a sense, had seen the explosion. It just didn't know where to look. Here is what should have happened next: a rush of scientists to the site. It didn't happen. Russia in 1908 was a country sliding toward revolution, and the blast had fallen in a place almost impossible to reach. So for nearly 20 years, the Tunguska Event sat in the taiga, unexamined, fading into rumor. It was not until 1927 that a mineralogist named Leonid Kulik finally led an expedition into that wilderness, expecting to find an iron meteorite and the great crater that surely caused it. What he found instead is the heart of the mystery. Kulik climbed out of the forest into a landscape of devastation that stretched to the horizon. Millions of trees stripped bare and laid flat in a vast radial pattern, all fallen outward, away from the center. But at the very middle, where the crater should have been, the trees were still standing. Branchless, scorched, dead, yet upright, like a forest of telegraph poles. That single detail is the key to everything. Trees directly beneath an explosion that comes from above lose their branches, but stay standing, while everything around them is blown flat. The blast had not come from the ground, it had come from the sky. So what was it? The mainstream answer today is an airburst, a chunk of rock or ice from space, perhaps 50 or 60 meters across, entering the atmosphere at enormous speed and detonating several kilometers up before it ever touched the ground. The energy released is usually estimated at somewhere around 10 to 15 megatons of TNT, hundreds of times more powerful than the bomb later dropped on Hiroshima. Though here, scientists genuinely disagree, with serious estimates ranging from a few megatons to several tens of megatons. We cannot be sure of the exact figure, Because there was no instrument at the center, only fallen trees and memories recorded long after. Even the nature of the object is debated. Was it a stony asteroid, which would mostly vaporize and leave little behind, perhaps explaining the lack of obvious fragments? Or a piece of a comet, mostly ice, which would have melted away entirely? The records disagree, and decades of searching have turned up only tiny, contested particles. In 2007, one Italian team proposed that a small nearby lake, Lake Cecco, might be a crater gouged by a surviving fragment. But other researchers pushed back hard, and the question remains open. Because no crater was ever found, the vacuum filled with wilder ideas. Over the years, people have blamed a tiny black hole passing through the Earth, a lump of antimatter annihilating in the sky, an exploding alien spacecraft, even a secret experiment by the inventor Nikola Tesla. To be clear, there is no credible evidence for any of these. They are stories the silence invited, not conclusions the data support. The real uncertainty is narrower and in some ways more humbling. We know roughly what happened. We just cannot fully close the case. What makes Tunguska linger is not the conspiracy theories, it is the arithmetic. This was the largest impact event in recorded human history, and it struck almost completely empty land. Shift it a few hours against the Earth's rotation, and that fireball arrives over a city instead of a swamp. The tiger absorbed a blow that could have erased a capital, and for 19 years, almost no one came to look. If you want more forgotten history that sounds made up, but isn't, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.